What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This episode number 823. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, as has been custom, we missed you at the PT.
Yeah, I hope to make my way back, not the too distant future, I would say. And, they even announced a team Grand Prix. So if there's anything that could do it, that would be.
yeah. Team Limited, right? So let's go. Yeah. So yeah, we know, everybody understands, but it definitely isn't the same without you out there. But we did have a good PT. It was interesting. I got to cover Edge of Eternity's draft, which, normally we have about 10 days with the set before we're drafting at the PT, and this time it was a couple of months. And actually, Edge of Eternities was a really good set for that, being so flat. It meant that the players really kind of had to know all the archetypes when they sat down. If they got a little too dialed in to something, then they could get punished by their seed. And we actually saw that happen a couple of times in the
Also,
future.
as it turns out, probably for the best that it was not Spider-Man.
And that too. So we're going to be,
we'll get to that.
We're going to be talking a lot about Spider-Man and bigger picture Magic stuff today. Kind of an interesting show.
As we go through the Spider-Man Sunset Show. Let's do it.
Our version of the Spider-Man Sunset Show. All right. Before we do that, we want to thank everybody who supports us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/limited resources. And it means a lot to us. Thank you so much. We've seen a nice influx of supporters and we really appreciate that. You get a thank you card and a sticker in the mail with some old school LR lore on it as well. And anyway, we just wanted to say thank you to everybody who supports us over there. We also want to say thank you to Ultimate Guard. Ultimate Guard sponsors this show. And the reason that we partnered with them when we did is because we use their products and we know how good they actually are. There's a bunch of good manufacturers of card protection products out there, but when you look at Ultimate Guard's lineup, it's really solid. Seriously, this is the type of company who takes their designs and the materials that they use to make their products very seriously, and they kind of let everything grow from that. And that's the type of company I really like to work with because it means that they really care about the fundamentals. So if you have a deck or a card that you need protected with sleeves, or, an entire deck to go in a deck box, or even a collection to go into binders and bigger boxes and backpacks and stuff like that, they're going to have something for you there. And each of their products down the line are very high quality. Again, well designed, well thought out, and they use premium materials on them as well. If you want to check out their product line, you can go to ultimateguard.com. And if you want to buy something, you can go to your favorite online retailer or local game store. Thank you, Ultimate Guard. We really appreciate your support of the show. So, Luis, we're going to do the Sunset Show for Spider-Man this week. And this is slightly earlier than we normally would do it. And also, we're not going to actually...
Last week was our set review.
Set review is
we're not actually going through the Sunset Show, but basically, here's where we're at. Spider-Man / Through the Omen Pass, came out, and we're gonna do a little dive into here what's going on. But just to put it at the front is neither of us really want to play this set. I have done 7 drafts. You did 1, right, Marshall?
I did 1.
I think it is worse for us, to tell people to not tell people what our actual opinion is on the set, and to try to provide information that's not accurate. Obviously, we don't want to do that. We don't want to play the set. And I think that a lot of what's going on with this set are things I don't really want to see in Magic. And I'm not saying my or your opinion is paramount, that we know better than other people. We can just talk about our own experiences, but I think that I would be surprised if this ended up being a beloved set. In fact, I think it's going to be one of the least popular sets of all time. And our plan is to not cover it past today for the reason that we don't want to play it. And we don't think it's a particularly good product. And one of the only ways to make our voices or your voices heard when it comes to these decisions is to tell Wizards, hey, we don't want to participate with this set. We don't want to engage with it. We don't want to buy it. I think that the Through the Omen Path stuff, the fact that it's different art and pictures and theming, I don't think that's great. I think Spider-Man's very cool. I think the Omen Path stuff is not. And maybe it's a little unfair to the Omen Path stuff. would I have thought that this set was, let's say the set came out just like that? Would I have thought that that was cool or neat? Would I have thought it was like it fit well or it felt like magic? Yeah, I mean, maybe I would have felt a little bit more charitable towards it. But the fact that I know that we can either get, Spider-Man Brooklyn Visionary and have Miles Morales swinging through Brooklyn as the common that goes and gets a land, or Zan Tunnel Web Explorer. Yeah, I think the Miles Morales one is way more cool. So it makes the other one look worse in comparison, and that's just part of the sacrifice they make. Because at the end of the day, what we say obviously matters to some degree, especially you and I, right? We have a platform. I'm not unaware of this, but it's becoming pretty clear that a lot of the decisions Wizards are made are driven by Hasbro needing Wizards to prop up the rest of Hasbro. At least that seems like a pretty logical conclusion. You can draw. Saffron Olive put out a great video about basically like where Hasbro's earnings are coming from, and the short answer is it's coming from Magic or Wizards of the Coast, and everything else is not doing well.
I'll put a link in the notes.
Making
to that.
Little money or losing money.
But it's shocking, the percentage. I mean, over the last couple of quarters, it's over 90% of the profits from Hasbro come from Wizards, right? From Magic.
So if that's the case, obviously there's going to be a lot of pressure put onto WotC and Magic to deliver. And when they look at something like the Through the Omen Paths decision, right? And that is to say that everyone's assumption, I think it's pretty clear at this point, Marvel probably has some sort of exclusivity deal with Marvel Snap, or Marvel Snap does rather with Marvel, or whatever. We don't know the particulars, but for whatever reason, Marvel basically, presumably told WotC, you can't put these cards out digitally, and WotC, again, we don't know the amount of pressure Hasbro exerts. I'm trying to be very clear what we do know and don't know, and what are assumptions, because I think it's just useful to talk about things in those terms. So I'm actually not often that absolute about things, Marshall, because I just don't want to claim that I know more than I know.
Right.
But I think it really does follow that Marvel, to some whatever capacity, told WotC you can't have these cards digital. WotC decided, and maybe because of pressure from Hasbro, maybe not, who knows, it's worth doing this, even though we have to do the Omen Paths version, because we think that is worth the sacrifice
to get that IP in the catalog.
In order to get Spider-Man, we have to put out the Omen Path stuff online. We can't put Spider-Man online. You know what? I don't think anyone at WotC would ever make that decision if they weren't forced to. It's obviously not the best decision for the quality of Magic, right? There's just no argument. I will not accept an argument that thinks that it's better to have two versions of these things. I just don't think it is. They decided it was worth it still because the overall deal was good enough. They think it's worth printing the Spider-Man cards. They think it'll make Magic cooler. They think it'll make money, all those things. Well, I think it sucks. And you know what? The best way I can communicate to them that I think it sucks is by not engaging with it. And I think that's true of everyone. And again, the minor note that we actually get to talk about this on a podcast that a bunch of people listen to, so we even have a little bit more of thumb on the scale. But really what mostly will communicate this is people not engaging with the set, and maybe next time that a licensing deal comes up where they can't have the cards online, they might think twice about it. And look, I know there's another Marvel set coming out next year, and maybe the ink's already dry on that deal, and maybe they still think it's worth it. And we could totally find out that despite the online sentiment of Spider-Man being pretty low, and I assume based on the information we have that it probably means it's going to be selling less, like box prices are going down and whatnot. That that it's not going to be as successful, but Wizards could be like, hey, no, you know what? Spider-Man is totally fine. It wasn't as successful as some of our other sets, but it was worth doing. And if that's the case, that's the case. And maybe we're going to get more Omen Path stuff. But I think that if we don't like the set and we don't enjoy it, and we think the Omen Path stuff, is detrimental, the best way we can get that message across is by not engaging with the set. And that's, I think, where we're going to land.
Yeah, I think so too. This is an interesting place for us because it's the first time we've ever Luis and I talked to each other and we're just like, I don't really want to play this. For me, it was a little bit of a timing issue. It came out, but I had the Pro Tour last week and, we fly out in the middle of the week to do rehearsals and technical checks and stuff. So, I didn't have a lot of time to be drafting anyway. But I got a draft in before and I started another one. And then it was like, okay, I got to go to the PT. And then of course I was more focused on Edge of Eternities. That was the format for the PT, as I mentioned. So, that's kind of where my brain was at. But normally on the flight home or right when I get home, I'd start jamming the new set, right? We're going to do the show on Wednesday or Thursday. And I would try to get as many drafts in as possible. And I'd just be excited to do so, right? Because it's the new set. And I was like, And then Jay, my friend Jay, he's like, hey, Final Fantasy's back up on Arena.
Oh, wait, is this your buddy Jay?
My buddy Jay. Not my buddy Adam.
Oh, okay.
Although they do know each other. And I was like, Final Fantasy, huh? Great. So I jumped into one of those queues and I've just been drafting that. And I'm just like, I don't want to force this. If I have to, I will. And I'm sure there's some meat on the bone. It's still Magic.
If I lay down the law and I'm like, Marshall, our next 3 shows, we're doing Spider-Man. You got to draft Spider-Man. I think you would do it. And
I could find the will to do that.
Likewise, I would too if you were like dead set on that.
And frankly, if our audience tells us to do that after this episode, we would also do that. If we get a huge amount of feedback, that says, hey, that's cool that you guys aren't super into it, but all of us are. Then okay, we're going to accommodate that.
Let's tell people how they can do that. You can post on the Reddit thread for the episode when it goes up.
Okay.
You can tweet at me and Marshall. I will tell Marshall if you post on Reddit or tweet at us.
Yeah, maybe we could
I'll send a carrier pigeon.
Could we put a simple poll up maybe on the Reddit thread post or something? Or
we certainly could.
Just like, are you cool with this, or does this suck? I don't know.
Well, here let me produce a little bit of my evidence towards this not being the case. One is that there was a poll by Yami Karibo, put it up on our subreddit 5 days ago, and the poll is Omen Paths the worst limited set of all time? And of the 236 votes, which I mean that's not like a huge portion, but it's a couple hundred people. 96 of the 236 votes were for Omen Path, 29 were for Phyrexia Olby 1. 24 for masks in really any configuration, Mercadian masks, whatever that set block is. And 23 are for Cold Snap, with 13 for Ixalan and 51 for other. But just to sum it up, Omen Paths, when going against every single Magic set in history, got, close to 40%, 38, whatever
versus
percent.
The field?
of the votes versus the field.
That's wild.
So that is very clearly like, okay, so the people on the subreddit at least are not that are not into the set. They think it's quite bad. Exactly 40% actually. I just did the math. The other pieces of evidence I have, Omen Paths is the worst performing set for content that I've ever seen. I tweeted this out. I've been doing content for damn near 20 years, Marshall. And I have not had a set less well received. You can ask Cheon, you can ask me.
Yeah.
The videos we put up, like I think Paul, I put up 3 Omen Paths drafts, and I'm not going to do any more. Paul did fewer. Like Paul, I think,
and that's his lane.
Paul did more, but he does 7 of these a week. For a new set, you'd expect him to put up 30 of them, and I think he put up 5 or something and is done, or 6 and is done. I don't know exactly the number. It might be 7, but I know he's putting up Final Fantasy drafts instead. And the same is true for TCG player content, where it's like, on week 1, they're like, no, people don't want to watch this. They don't want to read about it. Like, can you send us a cube draft? Can you send us a Final Fantasy draft?
Yeah. And, I want to talk about the bigger picture implications that you touched on as well, about kind of voting with your feet or your wallet type thing. And I want to, we should take a snapshot to take a look at where we're at with Magic, in 2025. And going back to that video that you mentioned, I'll put a link to it in the show notes as well, from Saffron Olive, where he really, he kind of did a deep dive into the financials to show what a huge percentage of Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, and specifically Magic is at this time. And it really does link up and explain why we've seen this just onslaught of new products and sets for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years now, where it's just ramped up more and more and more and more. And we're always kind of asking, are they going to hit a limit? Because, if you switch seats into the corporate role, they don't, it's a lot less emotional for them, right? They're more just like, okay, we put out a set and it sold really well. And so when we do the next one, should we charge more? Right? Because we sold out of it. So that means that we probably didn't charge enough. That's how markets work, right? So we'll do it again and we'll charge more. Okay. And well, what if we did 2 of these a year and charged more? Would we hit the ceiling there? And they do it and it's like, nope, they both sold out at the new price. Okay. Well, we need to do 3 and charge even more. Keep turning those knobs on production, whether it's charge more, produce more, and see where it finally, people say, too much, not for me. And the vibe that I've gotten is that they just haven't really hit that ceiling in a meaningful way, because, I was telling Luis, I was walking with Paul at the MagicCon in Atlanta, and we're walking down the hall to get to the coverage area, and what do we come across? Oh, it's the Magic Secret Lair Furby area. It's like 10 years ago, you could not have paid me to believe that that would actually exist. And it does. And it was like they had stuff going on. They had furry tables, you know, like to play on. And they had multiple Secret Lair Furby, right? It's like that's some obscure toy from a long time ago. It's just a total weird, you know, thing. And they're doing it, right? And so, you know, that means to me that we are right now as a player group being stress tested. Right there, Hasbro says we need Wizards of the Coast to keep producing money and to keep growing and earning. So if we keep pushing this button over and over and over, let's see how high it goes. Because, you know, we've seen this multiple times now, right? Where like products started out one way but ended another. Secret Lairs were like, oh, we're only going to do them in this one way, and we're only going to keep, and now they're just everywhere, and they completely disregarded what they originally said. Same thing with Universes Beyond. This is just a special thing. We're only going to do it in this one context. It's not going to be standard legal. Now that's out the window, and we're just seeing, you know, you know, 1 out of every 3 or sometimes even more sets come out are Universes Beyond, right? I'm not complaining. I actually don't.
4 out of 7 next
4
year.
out of 7. I don't even mind. I actually I've really come around on Universes Beyond, and I've never cared about Secret Lair. So it's like, go ahead, push that button all you want.
Yeah,
but the
I don't
key
care
is
if there's a Furby Secret Lair.
I don't either. I laughed about it. I was like, that's just crazy. Like, again, I wouldn't have believed it if you told me, but I'm just like, sure, you know, somebody's into it.
I don't think Spider-Man sucks because it's Spider-Man. I'm not even against Universes Beyond being in standard. I think it sucks despite it being Spider-Man. Spider-Man's actually on like the cool side of things.
It is. I like Spider-Man. I collected those comic books when I was young. So, you know, the big picture is we are being stress tested as a group where they're putting as much stuff out and seeing where that ceiling is. And it turns out that even if you take a great IP like Spider-Man, I mean, a truly classic, like it covers multiple generations of fans. It's deep into the lore of the kind of nerd culture. It's just an amazing IP. But if you schedule it kind of weird, cut the set in half, and then do this weird, you know, digital split thing with the IPs, that is enough, at least for Luis and I, and it feels like a lot of people, to say, nah, that's too much. And, you know, interestingly, they're also a victim of their own success in some ways, because one of the things that we saw right away that I mentioned is it goes up on Arena. It doesn't seem to be popping off. We've got some 17 lands data from the back end that kind of shows.
The they put up Final Fantasy flashback draft.
That's what I was just going to say.
People weren't going to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're going the same direction I was.
Yeah. And that's what I mean is like they're a victim of their own success, because Final Fantasy was so successful that once Omen Paths didn't just rocket into the sky, they hit the button right away to bring back Final Fantasy, which, by the way, left us wanting. Right? We didn't have as much time as we normally would have. And when Edge of Eternities came out, it was a little bit like, oh man, like I'm kind of not done with this set yet. Right? I wanted another few weeks with it. Well, it looks like we're going to get them now. And that's what I've been drafting, you know? And again, when you put out so many things, some of them are really great. Like Final Fantasy ended up being, it really just checked the box across the board. You know, it's going to be hard to argue against it being like the best set ever, you know, at least in many people's eyes. And, you know, it's just sitting right there. They hit that button and boom, I'm right back in the queue. And those queues are filling fast. You know, people like it. So these products are now competing against each other in real time because they're coming out so close to each other. And there's so many things floating around that you now get to decide which one to grab. The mentality that Luis and I have, because we're old school players, is the same mentality that used to carry over when they only had 4 sets per year. Sets were special. They were an occasion, right? Getting a preview card for a set was something that really mattered because it rarely happened. And these cards were going to define our play experience for months. Like standard or the limited format was going to be defined by this set for 4 months, 3 months. It went on forever, right? But now letting go of one of these is actually just not that big of a deal. Like if we just decide to kind of opt out of the Spider-Man set because it missed for multiple reasons, it isn't that special. It's just another checkbox along the way, and we've got more sets coming, and we can look back even just a couple of months and find amazing sets. So it's like, whatever. And you know, people of Luis and I how we approach the game, because we're, again, kind of old school players. We have to adjust to that. We have to say, you know what, it's okay to just say, you know what, this one kind of missed, and thereby send that signal to Hasbro and WotC. The other thing I wanted to mention, was that I want to back up what Luis said, is that, we don't think that we're the arbiters of these things. But when it comes to limited, we do have our pulse on the limited community and on the limited formats and stuff like that. As it were. Yeah. Yeah. And, and this one, the pulse is barely hanging on. I mean, from a vibes perspective, which I understand isn't data, but it kind of matters. It's just flat across the board. My friends aren't drafting this. Nobody's sending me, in the first week of a draft format, I'll often get texts from friends who say, like, how would you build this? Or check out this deck I built, or, what have you been drafting? Zero.
Like your buddy Jay or
my buddy Jay or my buddy Adam. Yeah. And I've gotten, effectively
to
nothing.
be clear to those guys, because I know this in the show, I'm making fun of Marshall. I'm not making fun of you guys.
They know. They know.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure they didn't think.
But yeah. And, so these things, these vibes also seem to indicate to me that, that this set missed for limited at the very least.
Yeah. And look, we have a lot of evidence in our favor. We have the poll at our subreddit. We have just like the general chatter we hear. We have the fact they put up Final Fantasy Draft. We have the content numbers from a bunch of different places. If we're wrong about this and there's a big outpouring, then maybe we'll revisit it. I would be surprised if that were the case, but I don't want to, again, I don't like assuming things.
Yeah. Well, can we also throw onto the pile here that the draft format kind of sucks?
Yeah, that's a big part of it too.
Right? It's like, if it was awesome, it'd be like, eh.
The draft format sucking, I think, is a part of the reason that people feel this way. Mm-hmm. And I mean, here's the other thing, is there's 5 color pairs, the allied color pairs, and red is just not a playable color. The best red card in the entire set has a win rate on 17 lands worse than just commons in the other colors.
The best,
and
the best non-rarity. Oh no.
Yeah, it's Neal Skysail Storyteller. That's the Jeskai Gwen, Spider Gwen or whatever. And then the best red common is like worse than the average 17 lands users like win rate by like multiple percent. It's like 52% versus 54%.
That is unbelievable.
So then you look at the color pair win rates, and it's like white green followed by white blue followed by blue black all have like high win rates. Red green has a pretty bad win rate, and Rakdos is like 51% or something. It's like, so
there's 3 draftable decks in the whole format.
I mean, I don't know, but I'd exactly say 3 draftable decks in the whole format, but like it is really just not.
Like, I mean, you normally have 10. Like, they cut it in half to 5. If you kill a color, that leaves you with 3. Like,
yeah, I mean, so like according to 17 Land Celestia, green white has a 58.5 win percentage. Azorius has a 57.1, and Dimir has 56.8. With then Gruul being 53.5 and Rakdos being 51.5. The enemy color pairs, some of them have high win rates. Like Simic has like a 62% win rate, but that's like 28 people drafting it, or number of games is 45 versus the number of games with Azorius is 9,000. So right. Like that's those numbers aren't that illustrative. And also, I mean, I know that let's see, I want to see what the comparison for the first week of Edge of Eternities versus the first week of Spider-Man. So let's see, Edge of Eternities would going up to like 8-4 or something, 8-3 or something. Yeah, I mean, the number of games played with like the color pairs is in 5 digits, in the 10 to 30,000 versus in Spider-Man the greatest color pair is something like 9,000.
Oh wow!
Like, and there's but that's even worse because there are half as many color pairs in Spider-Man as Edge of Eternities. Oh right,
so they should be double. Yeah,
so they should be like close to double, and it's like. It's a beating. So yes, the TLDR of the color balancing is that you really should not be drafting red. You just straight up should avoid red as best you can. There's not even a good card that can put you into red.
That's wild. So what we're going to do on the show this week is we are going to do a Crack-a-Pack, probably our last one of the set. And we are going to talk about the archetypes as they sit today, because we do recognize that some part of our audience is going to continue to draft this. And even if we're not going to spend showtime on it in particular. We don't want to leave you high and dry in case you do end up, if maybe there's an event at your local store or something like that, so that you have at least some handhold to go on. We're also going to talk a little bit about the pick two, the 4-player pick two draft format, just because it's kind of interesting and something that we may see again in the future. Yeah. And then we'll probably talk about what we're planning on talking about between now and Airbender coming out. But
yeah, so just to give you a roadmap of the next couple weeks of shows, the next stretch of episodes, I want to do a good level up episode. I don't have a topic yet, but it's been a while since we've really cracked into that. Get TBS back on for an old set review, do a Q&A episode, and talk about Cube. There's a lot of cool Cube stuff going on and coming up. So, I'm excited to talk about Cube. I'm always excited to talk about Cube. So that's basically going to be our plan. We'll do a quick review of the 3 good, playable archetypes here in Spider-Man. Well, 3.5, because I think multicolored green is also like totally viable. But that's kind of going to do it for Spider-Man content. You should consider this our sunset show, and we'd love to hear your feedback about that decision. But I just think this set was a miss, and I think that if we would want fewer misses in the future, we should let Blizzards know this set was a miss. Maybe next time they will make different decisions, or maybe not. I don't know. We don't have a ton of power in the situation, but we do have some.
Yeah, and we're going to exercise it this time. Crack a pack?
Let's do it.
All right, so I'm going to read the official Spider-Man version first, and then I will be quickly looking up the Omen Path's name just for completeness sake here. But our first card out is Stegrun the Dinosaur Man. That's I guess I need to read this out. There we go. It is Kefon Rage Incubator. This is 4 and a red for a 5/4. This is a foil, by the way. It's a menace, and you can pay 1 and a red and discard a card until end of turn. Target creature you control gets +3/+1 and becomes a dinosaur.
Well, it's first of all, it's a red card. It's not even a particularly good red card at that. So yeah, I would recommend not taking this card.
Yeah, this is maybe a good example of how red got to the spot that it's in. Our next comment is Selfless Police Captain, which is known as Crime Scene Instructor. This is 1 and a white for a 1/1 human detective. At common, it says this creature enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, and when this creature leaves the battlefield, it put its +1/+1 counters on target creature you control.
This one's great. It goes into green-white and blue-white very nicely. Very solid card. So I wouldn't really be thrilled to be first picking this, but it's a pretty good card.
Okay, the next one is Spider-Man Brooklyn Visionary, which becomes, well, there it is,
Zan, the Tunnel Web
Explorer, as he's known. This is 4 and a green for a 4/3 legendary Spider-Human hero. Of course, common. It's got web slinging for 2 and a green, and when Spider-Man enters, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap to then shuffle.
Yeah, I like Zan a lot, or Spider-Man. Just being able to support, like, you can go into a multicolored green deck, and that's where actually maybe you can like splash a good red card or play those good off-color bombs, whatever. And it's just also just a good card for just one of the 2-color green archetypes. So I wouldn't mind starting with it. Though yeah. My one concern, the green is, I think, maybe the best color. Like, green is very strong. My one concern with starting green is that one of the archetypes is red-green, which you don't want to be in. So I think starting with blue or white is going to be the strongest place to start in this format.
Okay. Next up is Mysterio's Phantasm, which is Phantasmal Vision. It's 1 and a blue for a 1/3 flying vigilance. It's an illusion villain, and it says when this creature attacks, mill a card.
This card is surprisingly strong. It works really nicely in the modified blue-white deck because it's a good place to put +1/+1 counters, and it's a villain. It's a cheap villain for the blue-black deck, so it's actually a pretty good place to start too. I wouldn't mind starting here. I think I'd still take Spider-Man Brooklyn Visionary over it, but I do like the Phantasm.
Electro's Bolt is next. It's also called Death Flame Burst on Through the Omen Paths. It's 2 and a red for a sorcery. It does 4 damage to target creature, and you can mayhem it for 1 and a red instead.
I mean, this is a fine card, but it's obviously not where you want to be because it's a red card. This does not rescue red, so I would not take it. I would take either the Phantasm or the Police Captain or the Spider-Man over it.
Or you can have both. Next up is
Well, it's
Spider.
true. Yes.
Yes.
I guess we're picking two. So, right.
Mhm.
So right now, I think that you either, I mean, it's kind of hard to say what you're going to pick on two when you've only seen this few cards, but
Mhm.
taking a blue white card or a green white card both is totally fine.
Next up is Spider-Man Web Slinger, which is Darval, whose web protects. Ugh. It's 2 and a white for a 3/3 spider human hero. It's legendary and it has web slinging for just white.
Yeah, this card is better in green white than it is in blue white, but it's totally playable in both.
Next up is Venomized Cat. This is Bane marked Leonin. It's 2 and a black for a 2/3 Death Touch. It's a symbiote cat villain, and it says when this creature enters, mill 2 cards.
Solid card. Black suffers from a little bit of the same problem as green, which is that you don't want to start with a black card because red-black is just such a terrible archetype that taking the venomized cat is a little bit like taking a blue-black card, and you would it's not strong. It's not a strong enough card to want to go into that color. I mean, again, if you first pick this plus a blue card, that's totally fine. But I think that a venomized cat is certainly not where I'd be looking to pick here.
Next up is Steel Wrecking Ball, which is Temple Trap. It's 5 mana for an artifact, and when it enters, it deals 5 damage to target creature, and you can pay 1 in a red and discard it to destroy an artifact.
Not even a particularly strong card, so I'm not into it.
Off it. Next is Heroes Hangout, which I need to.
This is the 2 creatures get +1/+0 in first strike, or exile the top 2 cards, and you can choose one and play it till turn. So
I was trying to get the stupid name. It's Firebrain Scheme.
Yes. Again, not a particularly strong card and a red card, so definitely not taking that.
Next is Madam Web, which is Ulk's Mouth Too Many Eyes. This is 4 blue for a 4/4 legendary mutant advisor. And of course, we're in the uncommons. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast spider spells and non-creature spells from the top of your library. And whenever you attack, you may mill a card. How did this one end up playing so far? We're looking up on 17 lands.
I had this in one of my drafts and it was not particularly good. So
it's really bad. Holy smokes.
Yeah,
48%.
I'm not too impressed with it.
I did not think it would be that low. Next is Spider Suit, which is Cactarantula Saddle. This is 1 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and is a spider hero in addition to its other types, and the equip cost ends up being 3 for this bad boy. Don't think we like this one particularly. No. Oh, it's bad. Yeah, 49%. And I will say that in sets like this where the colors are weird, and especially when one color is bad, sometimes the colorless cards can pull extra weight because they can fill in the gaps on some of those. But it looks like this one didn't quite do it. Next up is Damage Control Crew, which is Celestia Archivist. This is we really like this one. This is the 3 and a green 3/3. And when it enters, you can either return target card with mana value 4 or greater from your graveyard to your hand, or exile target artifact or enchantment.
Yeah, this card's great. It's a very strong card. It's pretty good in green white. Again, starting with the green card's a little bit risky. But you could easily take that in a pair with Spider-Man Brooklyn Visionary, or take it in a pair with a white card, which is a reasonable thing. There's not a white card in the pack strong enough to probably pass on with some of the other options, especially once we get to our actual rare.
Yeah, our actual rare is a nice one. And it's apropos of us doing this. It's Moreland, Devourer of Spiders, otherwise known as Luis Pompous Pillager. This is the black X 2/1 with lifelink. It's a vampire villain. And it enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. And when it enters, he deals X damage to target opponent, which is, as we noted in the review, a lifelinky damage as well. So how is this card actually done? Very well, 67.4% in early stages. So it looks like you are a chase rare, as it were.
So I think there's no combination where we're going to end up not wanting to take Moreland, Devourer of Spiders. Well, look at Luis Pompous Pillager. Let's be real.
Wow, Luis Pompous Pillager is currently the #1 card in the set.
As it should be. The only good thing to like about the set.
That's incredible.
I think that I would be inclined to just take this. I think it's best well, first of all, you don't want to drop black red, so blue black's the natural place. I don't mind taking this and just taking Mysterio's Phantasm. The other option you could do is you could take, if you wanted, the Spider-Man Brooklyn Visionary and start with a green and a black card, which is like off-label, but in exchange, you get to draft like a multicolored green deck and ramp up to Moreland. Probably better just take Mysterio's Phantasm. I think that card works out pretty nicely.
Yeah, and I think that this is this is a interesting thing about this draft format, but maybe one of the reasons why it's less interesting for the longer term to play is just that, like, look at this. We opened up a powerful pack, right? Like this is not a pack that you'd be like, oh, this sucks or whatever. Like there's a bunch of cool stuff going on here. But once you open up Moreland, or let's just call him Luis. Once you open up Luis, you kind of know you're taking that. It's the best card in the set. But then you're faced with this awkward decision straight away, right? Like you cannot make a power level pick here, right? The cards that you would take based on power level don't go well with this card because of the color situation. And then if you cut out yet another pair, which is the red pairing as the worst of the 5, now you're forced to go, okay, I guess I'll take Mysterio's Phantasm with it, even though that would not be the highest on your list. I mean, there's 2 green cards that you'd probably rather have above it. If red was playable, maybe Electros Bolt, would be a thing. Maybe even you'd want to take Spider-Man Web Slinger with it or something if if that archetype was not just not viable, but supported in any way, shape, or form, but it's not. So instead, you have to kind of bend over backwards here and take, I would call it a much weaker card.
Yeah, the effect that it has on the draft format that red is this bad is that it's 5 color pairs to start with. So that you don't want to draft red, but that also means starting with green or black, the 2 red allied colors, pigeonholes you into either one archetype or going off label, which can be okay, but really isn't where you want to be.
You give up so tough. Much. Yeah,
that's tough. So there's only 2 good colors to start with, really, there's 5 colors to start with, only starting with blue or white is kind of like safe, because those are like the enemy colors to red. And there's really only 3 decks you're commonly going to be in, with sometimes being in a different one.
So funny. I did want to touch on that, by the way, Luis, the 4-player pick 2 draft format.
Right.
What are you thinking about it? Like, has it been a negative or positive effect on on your experience in the format? I was shocked at how quickly it went.
Yeah. So I think that there are enough things going on in this set that have impacted the quality negatively that I would not personally put pick 2 anywhere near the top of the list. I do think so. I think the biggest advantage of pick 2 versus like kind of traditional 8-player draft is that it's easier to fire with fewer people and that it goes quickly. Neither of those things, I think, are big advantages in the digital world. When you log on to Arena, it's just not that hard to get in a draft queue with 8 people. Yeah. Well, not maybe in a set as unpopular as this one, but like setting that part aside, I don't think that it matters like very much, like that it's 2 or 4. And in fact, if you were drafting on Arena, you'd rather just draft whichever one is the better kind of draft format, because you can easily get enough people to play. So the fact that it's fast, well, Arena drafts are also very fast. When you look at the advantages, I would say mostly it's that in paper, being able to draft with only 2 people 4 people is actually pretty nice. That's like a normal size of a play group, right? Like a commander, commander group, maybe like, hey, let's do this draft and then maybe we'll play commander afterwards or whatever, And I think that's all totally fine. I don't have any issue with that at all.
Yeah, it didn't feel super bad to me either. I mean, there's outstanding factors in this particular set, but if this was a normal set and we were drafting this way, I don't know. I feel like there's some meat on the bone with it. And I did hear a Wizards employee talking about this at the PT, and they were saying that part of the reason for this 4-player draft format existing is what you said, which is that, right now there's been a massive influx of players into our game, but almost all of them are coming in to play Commander. And they were saying that it's difficult to get a Commander player or Commander group to play limited, even though there's some good overlap and they may enjoy playing limited sometimes. But when you need double the amount or even an extra couple of people, and then it's all this extra setup and everything, and it takes a while in paper, to draft, then, people are like, I got my Commander deck. Let's just shuffle up and play. This is actually a really nice solution to that doesn't like ruin the limited experience. Like it still feels like limited when you're doing it, but you could sit there and it is tailored for 4 players, which is the typical Commander group size these days. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this come back a little bit, or maybe it gets pushed in a different way, because there seems to be, I think that the folks in the building at Wizards really understand limited and how good it is at keeping players playing and how it sells product and how much people enjoy it, who really get it, but that there is, that big hump to get into it. If you've never drafted before and you're sitting down at a table and somebody jams a pack and says, okay, here, open this and take a card, it can be very intimidating to try to figure this out, especially if what you're used to is this Commander experience where it's the complete opposite. You have as much time as you could ever want. You can sit there and search Scryfall to your heart's content. You're hunting, your decisions might be more predicated on hunting down the version of the card you want rather than deciding what card to take. And there's certainly no time component to it, where, in limited, there is that kind of, you need to decide now about what you're doing with this thing, and then you need to build it too. And you may not, you have to get the heuristics for that, the 17 lands thing, the 2 colors, the little things that we as limited players take for granted, but those need to be learned, and they are difficult to learn. And it's a big step up from the much slower kind of curated process of building a Commander deck. So, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw this come about again. And also I wouldn't even be that sad. In fact, I'd like to try it out on a set that's more well-rounded, than this one.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater here and say that pick 2 draft is bad. I don't have evidence to suggest that it is. I think that the advantages of pick 2 draft don't really translate to digital, so I'd rather not see a set that's like, maybe that's the emphasis. Mm-hmm. But I'm all for things that make more people play limited. I think that pick 2 draft does a good job of that. So I'm not I'm not against that at all. But I think that it's probably on balance like a little bit less fun of a format than some of the formats than an 8-player format, but I think it's had some real advantages too. And I wouldn't mind seeing that again. That wouldn't particularly bother me.
Yeah, I'm not writing that off. I kind of hope that some of the, because I think that you and I both know that, limited for many players is kind of the end game for them, right? It's where they end up Magic wise, because it's a lot lighter of a load to carry as far as buying cards and maintaining formats and decks and always having to constantly be adjusting and doing all that stuff. But you still get that freshness, like any draft format that you might not like that much. Well, there's always another one around the corner, and they tend to tie into the decks or to the sets that do well and bring them back somewhat often. So if you have a favorite one and it goes away, it's a good chance that it'll be a flashback draft at some point. Plus, the ability to have that novel experience over and over and over again is really core. And I do think that a lot of Commander players would really enjoy that. It is a tough sell to say, hey, here's your group of 4 players that gets together every week and has pizza and all that. Do you want to talk about the archetypes
one last point I think too is like, and I do want to apologize for like the negativity inherent in this episode. I don't like being negative about stuff. Like that's not like fun. But
honesty counts.
But it's not our job to sell sets to you. It's not our job to sell Magic to you. Like obviously we love Magic, and if you're listening to the podcast, we assume you do too, or at least you're interested in it. And it wouldn't make sense to come on here and just whine about how bad Magic is, because that's not what we're doing. I love Magic. I play tons of Magic still. I think we would be doing a disservice if we didn't really just give you what our honest viewpoint is here. And if that means you don't want to play Spider-Man and we're making it sound worse and maybe being negative about it, well, we don't generally say that. Like I'm pretty clear upfront about the sets I like and the one I don't. Like a lot of people probably picked up. I really didn't like Phyrexia All Will Be One. That was not a fun set. I didn't appreciate it. But we love Final Fantasy. There's a lot of sets we did love. Like it's not something like it's something that really just depends on the context. And in this particular case, when we don't like a set, we're going to be pretty upfront about it.
Yeah. And again, yeah, we do want to recognize that we've said a lot of negative things about the set, and hopefully it isn't too big of a damper. But I mean, what would our credibility be if we were just like, yay, this is so awesome, guys, let's play Spider-Man? It's like, nah, like we're going to keep it real with our audience. And again, we mentioned it before, but we're very open to feedback on this too. You know, if we received an avalanche of people being like, you guys are crazy, this set's great, I'm going to be drafting it, I can't wait, you know, that type of stuff, you know, I would be much more willing to dive in. But you know, I think the combination of the compromises that this set had to make, plus the kind of overall number of sets that come out, leads to an outcome like this at some point. So, do you want to talk about the archetypes?
Yeah. So we're just going to talk about the 3 non-red archetypes here, and just talk about some of the key commons and kind of what you should be looking for. Look, and here I'll try to give him props where we can. One of the success things is, if this is your first draft format, it is nice that it's not going to be the most intimidating to jump into, because there aren't that many archetypes and they're a little bit on rails. So you at least have that to look forward to. But the most successful archetype is green-white. So it's kind of like in web aggro with counters. So
with
cards
plus one counters.
Yeah, cards that put +1/+1 counters on are very good. Cards that push aggression, combat tricks, having a good curve, all that's really important. So for commons, we're talking cards like Spectacular Tactics, which is actually the most winning white common. That's the one that destroys a 4-power creature or gives a creature +1/+1 in hexproof.
We like that.
That's pretty interesting, actually. Yeah. City Pigeon is huge for this deck. That's the 1-mana 1/1 that when it leaves the battlefield makes a food, because it activates all your in-web stuff, but also it gives you a good place to put +1/+1 counters. So City Pigeon, unsurprisingly, kind of an all-star. Mothwing Shroud, the Banishing Light, is great, of course. Perilous Lunge is really good. That's the sorcery that gives a +1/+1 counter in fight. And that just is a removal spell that also plays with counters, which is exactly what these decks are looking for. With Zan Tunnelweb Explorer, the Spider-Man Brooklyn Visionary being a strong way to kind of get fixing and reward you for in-webbing nicely. So the best way to draft green-white is to just try to have a good curve, try to have ways to grant counters or combat tricks, ways to kind of get on the board and stay ahead. And you can end up doing pretty well. Like, it's 2 strong colors, and especially if you start with white, you're really just not at a huge risk of ending up kind of in a dead end.
Man, that's looking at the commons ranked is really something else. You have to go a long way before you get to red. Also of note, kind of interesting, Phantasmal Vision. That's at least currently the best blue common. So I guess maybe not so bad to have to take it with Luis in our pack. Yeah,
no, that as we'll see in the as we look at some of the other commons, that is I think an important common for both blue-white and blue-black.
Okay. So that's green-white. What's the next of our 3?
Blue-white. So this is like kind of the modified deck. Modified aggro is kind of how I would look at it. So you've got Phantasmal Vision, Mothwing Shroud, Principled Referee. So that's the card that either brings back a 2-drop to your hand or puts 2 +1/+1 counters on your creatures. And obviously that's great in these decks that are trying to modify their own creatures. And Unstable Experiments are really cool. And I like this card. I mean, there's some cards in the set I like. That's the draw a card and then target creature you control connives. So you draw another card and then discard and it gets bigger. That card is neat. It does some good stuff, and it modifies nicely in the set. Also very good on Phantasmal Vision.
And so that's for blue-white, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For blue-white, you also just kind of want to draft a pretty aggressive deck with a good curve, a lot of good 2-drops, and the 2/2 that when it's modified has flying and has ward 2 is really good. Like
the Aerialist.
Yeah, that's one of the rewards for being in this deck and finding good ways to modify. And that brings us to blue-black, which is Villain's Control. And this one, some of the key commons are things like Damning Crest, Scorpion Sting, Drix Interception, just like a lot of the good removal. And here you want to draft like a control deck. You want to try to have card advantage. The stuff that counts villains is really easy to enable. Most of the blue and black cards tend to be villains. So or bloom black creatures rather. So I haven't found the villain count to be difficult in the slightest. And I think for the most part, you can draft this as kind of like a classic control deck with a slight more emphasis on creatures because it does care about creature types. So I think that blue black has there's a lot of reasons to go into it, but overall, I would look at being in one of these three archetypes. I would not want to be in red green ramp or red black mayhem. There's just really nothing that can get you into those that makes sense. Like there's not even a great red card. It's just so wild.
I mean, like I said, I was looking at just the commons, but I mean, you have to go so far down the list before you start seeing red commons even pop up at all. It's wild. And it was Deathflame Burst, by the way, which is the card that we opened. But as you mentioned, it has just below a 53%. Wow. That is, what is the current? I'm curious if the makeup of this actually changes the average win rate. Normally it's 54 or something like that. Let's see, 2 colors. It's 56.1. So something being at 53 is like well below average. Yeah, goodness sakes.
It's crazy. And then there's one more archetype I wanted to touch on, by the way, which was the kind of multicolored green deck. And the way you end up here, I drafted this deck once and I played against it a couple times, is you just start with green cards mostly and maybe like a very strong card. Like the new Gonti, the like Grease Wrench, the 3 black, steal the top 2 cards out of their 9 cards, where you dig through time off their deck. Like if that's like the sort of thing, or you Luis Pompous Pillager, where you're in green, like green, mostly green after pack 1. Maybe you could go white, who knows? And then you just open one of those cards and you're just like, okay, I'll snap up that. And I'll end up in kind of like multicolored green. You want cards like Spider-Man, Brooklyn Visionary, Shazam, Tunnel Web Explorer, all the allied dual lands, Vibrant Cityscape, the Evolving Wilds. And here's also where, this is funny, another little minor nitpick I actually have is that there's a cycle of rare enemy color cards that are all very strong.
Yeah, what is that?
And it's just like,
so you open it up, you don't really know what you're doing, you take it, and then you end up in one of these off-brand.
Yeah. So it's just really everything about it. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do enemy color rares in an allied set.
You cannot in this set. That is ridiculous.
But this is a small set, and it's just like you're just going to completely trap someone.
It's a total trap.
So it's tough. Like
I don't like that at all because I just feel, I always try to look out for the newer players.
You open like Spider-Man 2099, the blue red rare that looks pretty good, or there's like a red white rare that looks pretty strong. At least Mr. Negative, the black white one, is like a 7-drop, so you can justify splashing it. But you end up Aranya, Heart of the Spider. It's a strong red white aggro card. And it's like, okay, well, you really are going to do yourself a disservice if you first pick that. So there we go. That's our wisdom on Spider-Man. Is that a sufficient amount to get you through it? Who knows? But you can let us know.
Yeah. The other thing I would add is that people are definitely not drafting the off-color things. I mean, I looked up the numbers that you were looking at too, Luis, and the 5 supported pairs, have been played somewhere between 2,300 and almost 10,000 times, depending on the pair, and they range in between. And the ones that haven't are like range from 45 to 300 times. Right. So we're talking orders of magnitude. Like people just are not playing them, which that does seem the correct thing to do. But it also means that, people aren't really finding a foothold in those. I would like to see, I don't really care that much, but I am curious about how many of the successful off-color archetypes did start with one of those rares, that maybe they drag up the win rate enough or something. But anyway, that's a bit of a rabbit hole. What are we going to talk about in the coming weeks? You said you wanted to do a level up for sure.
I want to do a level up. I want to have TBS on. I want to do a Q&A episode, and I want to talk about some Cube. And
we're open.
That's kind of what we had. Like we said before, if we hear an overwhelming amount of feedback, we could change course here. I'd be kind of surprised if that happened, but stranger things have. And I also think like this set, as far as I know, there's not like an arena open or direct for this. I'm not sure. Maybe there is, but
I don't think there is.
I believe there's not. And it's just there's not that much to break down. I don't know how much more meat there is on that bone anyway. Like there's more, obviously. We could talk more.
I don't think there's that much. Like that's the other thing is that like
how many full length episodes could we like, especially since we did the set review, so we spent a lot of time talking about the cards. How many more full length episodes could we do that are really like moving the needle for people?
You already went over all of the viable archetypes.
I mean, we should talk about the red decks too to some degree. But there's not a whole lot to be said.
If we want to lead our listeners, off the cliff, I guess. I think that the most interesting thing about the format is the pick two, because it does lead to decision points and methods that we would have to sort of solidify as heuristic that we don't right now. Like, for example, exactly what we bumped into on our Crack-A-Pack, where it's like we opened a bomb rare in black. What does that mean? Where can we actually go from there? Does that mean that maybe the best performing card on the battlefield or in game, shall we say, ends up being Luis, but maybe the card you actually want to open is not a black rare, but actually one of like a white rare, so that you can pair it with, two non-red archetypes or whatever. And that to me does get kind of interesting. But that's also something that, maybe would pop up if we end up revisiting this format down the line. What's your favorite card of the format?
Luis Pompous Pillager.
Yeah, maybe that's the one. My favorite card of the format is going to be, I can't remember what it's called because it's not in the set. It's like Arachna something. It's 2 and a green.
Arachnogenesis.
Yes.
It's because of the Spider-Man art. Yeah.
Yes. That's it. Because it has some of my favorite and most nostalgic art on it. Todd McFarlane from when they rebooted Spider-Man, and they did Spider-Man 1. And this was the first one, and they came out with like, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5. This is when they were super into alternate covers. So there's like a gold one and a silver one and the regular one. Anyway, and it's a simple image. It's just Spider-Man sitting on a web. But it's kind of iconic for me, and I'm going to track down one of those Magic cards, and I'm going to own it. So they finally got me with one of these like nostalgia hit IP things. I'm like, all right, I'm going to the local game store or whatever. I'm going to fire up TCG Player or something and try to find myself a copy of one of those things. So, okay, Luis, anything else you want to cover before we ostensibly say goodbye?
I'm curious to see how this does. I think people will be, at the very least, they'll think it's funny that we're doing a sunset show on week 1 of the format, but that's where we're at.
That's where we're at. I'm going to put a link to Saffron Olive's video in the show notes. Was there another link? Should I put a Reddit? It won't be up.
No, I think that's probably good.
Okay. So if people want to listen to that, it does add interesting context. It's not about Spider-Man, the set, or what we talked about specifically, but it does hit on some of the prevailing winds that we mentioned at the beginning of the show. And I think it's an interesting lens through which to look at our game right now, because it does help explain why we're seeing so many of the things that we're seeing, and also in some ways, like we're doing today, inform how we react to them. So I did find that interesting, and you can check it out too. And of course, it was always well done by Saffron there. Okay, well, let's call it a show there, Luis. We'll be back next week with more exciting limited content. Buckle up. Could go anywhere. If you want to find us on social media, Luis is LSV. I'm Marshall_LR technically, but as Luis mentioned,
tweet at Marshall, but if you don't tag me in it, he's not going to see it.
I have more or less, stepped away from Twitter. I didn't find it to be a useful or healthy space, and so I've left I still have my account. I didn't shut it down.
Marshall posts a ton on Blue Sky.
Yeah, I don't have a Blue Sky either, but I do post, like when we have our preview cards, I figure that's a good avenue social? For people to see them. God, no, Jesus Christ. No, I want fewer social medias, fewer. I do have Instagram, but I use it almost exclusively for the watch stuff. I have a TikTok for the watch stuff as well, but that feed, it doesn't have much Magic stuff in it. It's more basketball and watches and stuff like that. Anyway, but I am Marshall_LR, and if you're really have strong feelings. I will log into Twitter this week, so I'll see what you have to say. Or I'll wait for Luis to tell me what everybody's saying. If you want to support our sponsor, it's ultimateguard.com. Or like I said, you can find their stuff at most local game stores, and your favorite online retailers has it for sure. We want to thank everybody who supports us on Patreon. It's an important piece of the puzzle for us, just because, having that Patreon support means that, we can say what we want, and we don't really think about it these days about, if there's going to be, as long as we feel that we're being honest with our audience, that's kind of the bar for us. Anyway, thank you to everybody who supports us on Patreon. And of course, you can find everything related to the show at lrcast.com. That's going to do it for this one. We'll see you next week.
Just a short Cube update, because I did add a couple cards from Spider-Man.
And we might be talking about Cube a lot.
So unfortunately, because we do play online, they are the Owen Pass version, but I'll just say the Spider-Man version. Spectacular Spider-Man. That's the 1 and a white 3/2 flash. You can pay 1 to give it flying. You can pay 1, sack it, and protect your whole team. Pretty neat card. White also really makes use of the 2 drops with flash, because when you're on the draw against the blue decks and they go like island,
yeah,
and they're just sitting there on their little filthy mana leak or lose focus, you just play your second land, say go, and then they waste their turn 2 of mana. They just pass back. End of their turn, you flash in your creature, and they either do something about it, and they kind of wasted 2 turns of mana, or you get to sneak it through and resolve your 3-drop if they counter it. So I think this is going to be pretty nice. Height on the Ceiling is what I'm trying, but I'm a little skeptical. This is the X and a blue instant, and you exile a bunch of X creatures or artifacts, and then they put them back at the end of turn, beginning of the next end step. So you can do some fun like blinky type stuff. You can also exile all their blockers because they don't come back until end of turn, and then attack for lethal. So it leads to some interesting plays, like if they threw the Breach or Goryo's Vengeance you can exile their thing, but then they get to keep it forever. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. You could technically exile a bunch of artifacts if you had a reason to do that. And then Norman Osborn. This is the 1 in a blue, unblockable. When it hits, it connives, and then it has a Grixis backside that lets you give all your cards mayhem. So this card's pretty cool. You get to do some cool stuff. And as sometimes people still have like Suspicious Stowaway. I think this card's basically just stronger, because conniving every turn makes the thing bigger and bigger. And I think that is a pretty strong ability, even without considering the backside. So I think this one's going to stay in for a bit too. And then lastly, Miles Morales has a pretty good green 2-drop. It's the 1/2, the 2 +1/+1 counters, and then you can flip it. You pay 9 mana and flip it, or just cast it as this side. The 4/3 hexproof first strike that puts counters on itself.
And what color trio is that one again?
Red, green, white, but the front side's all green. So, only added 4 cards from Spider-Man, which is not a lot, but it's a small set, so it's not like the worst. I do think all 4 cards are actually going to stay in the cube. So that hit rate actually isn't as bad as you would think. Like Edge of Eternities, I probably tried 15 cards and 3 or 4 stayed in the cube. Like there's not that many, Right. So I think that Spider-Man's actually not going to hit that badly for cube, which is one of the most complimentary things you can say about it.